Okay, this is the bullwhip section. I showed you in some stills before this that you can actually arrange the strands, the 4 strands. It could be 6 or it could be 8. On the kangaroo hides can be anything up to 16 or 20 plaits. So just arrange them around the handle and bind off the end. And then we start by crossing the first one over one at the front, like that. Then we take the back opposite side to the one that we've crossed, and it comes around the back and then over your first lap. Grabbing this back one, come under this side and over the one you've just done. This one we go around the back, under this one and over this one. So the sequence is under one, over one, under one, over one in a 4 plait, and pulling as tight as you possibly can. So just watch my hands now. You can notice now that I'm pulling them back and down to try and cover up any possible holes we have in it. If you have a look, if you see if there's any holes, that means that you're pulling them down this way too much. They need to be pulled back. It's quite tough work on your fingers. Just keep going. If you get tired, stop and then start again after. Right, at this stage you need to unravel your strands. Pull them all through so you don't end up getting knots. Keep pulling as tight as possible. Now we're coming over to the piece where the keeper will be, which we'll show you shortly how to actually form. The keeper actually locks down onto this section here and holds all of it in place. With cowhide whips, they're quite thick in the strands of leather. If we ended up having too many layers, it will end up so thick it would be almost hard to grasp. So now I'm going over that section and going really tight. So now we're moving into the body of the whip. So you can see here's the belly. It has a shot core to give it weight. Right, so we're moving on with plaiting down the main body of the whip. My advice here is to keep plaiting and pull as tight as you possibly can. Because this is a bullwhip, the handle is quite rigid in here. This section here is quite rigid, and then it starts to flex off that. If you haven't got a very good takeoff from here, inside this particular bullwhip kit, there is a nylon rod, as I showed on some stills before on the making of the interior. Trying to keep your line as straight as you possibly can. Look down and see if you've got a good straight line any gaps, any holes. It's good practice just to replait it, undo it and replait it again. Now you have the nice smooth side facing forwards, and you open up the eye and you pop it over the end, and of course feeding everything through. So we run that up the whip about far enough so that we can actually see about 1 foot of the fall at the end, and then we start to perform to tie the knot there. We undo where we tied off, and we start with the first or the back strand that we would have started to pass round the back, under one, over one. We'll start with that one. So we go round the fall, around everything, and through its own loop. And then we pull that up. Now I have got this on another video, but you may not have that video, so I'll just show you. Just get your thumb, and you push it, and you pull it, and you push it, and pull it, and you get it to sit nicely so that that is now a running half hitch heading down. So the more we pull on that, the tighter it's going to go. We take the next one. See, there's 3 on this side and 1 on this side. Now, good point. That one there is going to be the one that we tie off at the end. That's a good one, that one. Otherwise, it'll look a little untidy. So we'll take the one from the bottom. It'll slide out nicely and just sit over the top, running the same way. Everything must travel the same way all the time. So put that through its own loop as well, and then we again fiddle it around, try and get it to sit nicely in place. Push it with your thumb, pull it up tight, and then pull it up nice and tight. Just do the best you can. It's not really that critical. Okay, so there's number 2. Okay, see how it goes all the way around? It's good, isn't it? Okay, so we have, make sure that you don't use all of the same one strand to tie your knot. Try and see if you can remember. I like to actually just grab a knife and just cut off the ones I've done. Cutting down about yay far. Tough leather, isn't it? So anyway, we know which ones we've done, which ones we haven't done. So we'll go to that again, the same way, the same loop, goes back through itself again, and we'll push it and pull it, and there we go. It's number 3. We can push it and pull it a little bit more. I keep running off shot here, troops, but well, I'm actually watching a monitor at the same time and trying to get it to sit in the right place while I'm trying to see what I'm doing on the knot. Kind of difficult. Anyway, we have the last one. Have a look at that. You won't need to cut off this second to last one here. In fact, the second to last one, you know that it's the second to last one. So now we're going to try and move parts of the knot around a little bit, and then this last one does exactly the same as all the other ones, to start with anyway. Over the top, and then gets pulled up. I'll pull it nice and tight. Now what you see is that. Now, here's the tricky part. I'm going to have to turn the video off for a little bit while I get ready to show you. I'll have to zoom into a different angle. Okay, we're back again. Now we have the last strand here. Now what I'm going to do is, see, it's naturally running and heading out around this way. I'm going to open up with my fid. Very interesting tool. This is a sharpened screwdriver with flat dished shape with slightly squared sides. It's pointed, but it's not sharp. There's no sharp points on it. So I'm going to use this to open up
the loops that I've made. I'm going to drive it in, just like that, drive it right in, push it, and notice it's wedge shaped, so it's going to open up those loops that I created. Now I'm going to take the sharpened point of the last thong that formed the running half hitch and see if it's going to slide up through the gap. If it isn't, I'm going to stick that back in there again and push it up and press on the side of that knot, which will help to press with your hand to keep it open. Right. I've pulled it so tight that I'm going to have to do it very quickly. So try and get it. Yeah, there it goes. I got it. Okay, so now I'm going to pull that. And it's pulling through, notice. And it pulls up and it sits just nicely there. See how that folds back on itself there? And it's running up through the centre here. Now we'll go round the thong, going on the underside. See that again? So I'm going to go round the thong, all the way round again, one more time, and then we're on the other side of the knot now. We're on the opposite side of the knot. So I'm going to open up the other side of the knot. This time it's all 4 parts that I'm going to try and open. So I insert the fid right in, and yeah, you can see that there's a lot of wax being squeezed out there. If you put a lot of pressure on it, you'll see it all come out. Now open it up and it should slide right through again. Okay, so now we have something that looks like this. Now we'll get back to the official zooming device. Okay, and can you see that? And it goes all the way around. So it's actually there as a binder for the braid. Okay, right, we're going to pull it through now. Okay, back again. Now I've got it on the floor this time. We've got all the knot, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on it and pull the leather fall. Okay, just watching that to make sure that it's nice and flat and guiding it through. When I get to this point, I'm going to feed the loop up and there it goes, and then pull that. Did you see that? She just slipped in beautifully. Okay, so we now have that in position. Now we need to know which one was the last one so we can pull that. Now it's got to be the one with the point. Grab a hold, get a good hold and pull, and what you'll see happen is this piece here will pull right up to the back of the fall. We'll take our knife and we're going to trim any lumps and bumps that is sticking out from the fall. Trying to give it as streamlined effect as we possibly can. Okay, then we'll cut off the last parts. We put the knife in underneath and we pull outwards so that we don't accidentally cut our fall. Next, we're going to roll it. Okay, we're at the point where we need to roll the actual thong down. As you can see, it's just an old piece of board. I use a nice piece of flat board and it builds up a bit of wax and stuff on it, but don't panic about that. You need a nice leather soled shoe. It's got to be flat so it slips and rolls. as you can see, and we roll it, roll all the way down, and then we'll keep shifting it along, roll, until you feel it go nice and smooth. Now you can really see the difference there, can't you? You can really see that it's actually rolling it into place, where it may be lumpy and then smooth. Good point to know here, and that is, this is a very good way of taking lumps and bumps out of whips and also breaking them in. It eases the braid. We're easing the plait now. And after that, it won't be quite so rigid. It'll be a little bit more flexible than it was before. You feel where it's tight, where it hasn't been rolled? And this eases it down, so there's a bit more fluid flow to it now. And the tighter you roll that down, the more flow it'll have. Well, it's me again. Well, I got right to the end. I put the fall on, just as I instructed. Now we're at this end. Of course, there's a bit of a mess at this end, but that's only because it's just held in place for the moment. So we're going to unwind it all. I just use a thicker line that I can keep reusing every time, and it's a waxed line so that it actually sticks to everything. As you can see, it's pretty much stuck to this as well. Because your leather is soaked in the right kinds of compound, again, it will stick. Now this particular portion is called backplaiting, where we're going to actually undo it and then redo it again. Now for this demonstration, of course, I'll put it just here so that you can actually see it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull these strands so that it is plaiting just like you were plaiting down the main body of the whip, but this time we're actually going to be tightening the back end. So remember, it's under one, over one, under one. We just need to hold it in place for the moment, flip it over, and push that into place. Now we just take a slightly thicker twine which was provided for you and bind off the end. Now this is only preliminary binding, so just use some of your binding just so that it holds it for the moment. I'll flip it over this way so you can see now, and I'll just basically pull a knot just so it'll hold for the moment. Now this is where the long nose pliers come in. So we're going to actually grab a hold of one strand and keeping your hand nice and tight, we're going to pull it. Make sure you pull in the right direction that they're travelling, because otherwise they'll unravel. Get a hold of it, give it a good pull, clamping your hand round the end of this whip handle so that none of the other strands actually move. And you'll see it's all tightening up. If you keep pulling in the same direction that they travel. Okay, so what you've got there now, let's grab our knife, trim off the one that's coming off the spool, and then we're going to tighten that in there. Every knot pulls it a little tighter and tighter. We're going to use some of the gimp pins to actually drive them in on an angle going into this lead weight in the back end, and it'll hold it all nice and steady. So now we're going to trim off and leave some of the leather exposed, so that that's what we're going to do, put the gimp pins through. See how I've trimmed it there? Just trim it away. So there you have it. So that's ready for driving the gimp pins through.
So now we're going to trim off this end, leaving a little bit sticking out. Okay, so now we're going to use some of the gimp pins, just stick them in and drive them in on an angle. Good thing about these is that they're thin enough and small enough to actually bend over as they go in, so they hook in. If you can get them to drive in, of course, that's half the battle. Right, so I would use 4 pins if I were you, and you can feel them bending over. Very much like a horseshoe, attaching a horseshoe. And just drive that down. Right, so now we're all set to put the keeper. Now the keeper sits at a certain point where it starts to change into a thickness, because that's part of the shaft that's covered with leather, and so that's the part that we're going to put the keeper on. Right, I've given you more than enough leather. It's a thicker kangaroo hide, especially for tying good solid knots. We look for the swell, the thickening area, and it's around, you can just see it no more, just there. If you're worried about where it should be or shouldn't be, measure it before you actually do the plait and say 10 inches or 9 inches, depending on what type of whip you've got, what kit you've got. So I'm going to start my knot by lifting up with my fid, especially shaped kind of fid, this one. It hooks and it will roll under the braid. So now we want it to travel up this way. And so that is the first part that will hold your kangaroo in place, going under one of the braids. And then we start forming the knot, just the same knot as you use for a heel, but on a stock whip. This one here is one I like to use at various times because you can make them into a star form or any form you like. First one, it travels, I go from right to left, but you can go from left to right. It doesn't really matter as long as you keep the sequence going in one direction. They must cross themselves. These two must cross so that when the next one comes over, it must pass under the next one. The sequence is always the same. Under, now it's going over that one, and under this one. Spinning it around, so I'm going over this one. Now I want to form another bite because that's meeting the beginning again, so I'm going to go over this one, so it's over that one, over this one, and under this one. And then we're taking another bite of the circumference, going around, following it around, and of course there's one here that we have to go under to make it's symmetrical. Following it around, and here's one here that we go under. And here's another one here, because we're starting to actually hit the beginning again. Now once we put this one in place, we've hit the beginning. So if you look at that knot, it's not that tidiest, but as you can see it's all under one, over one, under one, over one. Now we're going to run it parallel to thicken it out. So we're going to follow this one all the way. Wherever it goes under, we go under. Whenever it goes over, we go over and then back under again to the next one. You can see that we're actually going to have two parallel strands side by side.
and I'm following it all the way. Making sure it doesn't twist there. Be a bit of a disaster. Keeping on the correct side of it is also another point. If you flip it over to the other side, it starts to look funny. So you can see I'm actually following it beautifully at the moment. That's what this is for as well, for fiddling it into place. Going under this last one. So there it goes. So, beginning, end. So now we can grab a hold of it and spin it down a little bit, so it sits better. Now we succeed in tightening it. So I'll do this reasonably fast. You can take your time with this. The tighter you get it, the less movement there will be in this whole joint. But the actual stiffener is still in here. So this isn't going to be the weak spot, is it? Most whips, this is the weak spot, and even getting further down, but the stiffener is still running down and through here. So that's what we're aiming for, so that the working parts of the whip don't go soft. Starts getting really tight now. So luckily it's properly waxed, so with a soap wax, so it'll slide through alright. If you do have problems, you can always put some more on the compound that I've given you in the kit. Right, there it goes. There's the last piece. Now that's been clamped down. Now all we do is gently, very gently, place the blade onto the leather and pull the leather so that you don't strike down with a blade. It's the only way to cut through a Turk's head like this. The strand, put your blade on it and pull the leather. Look at that. And then you don't cut anything. I use the side of my knife and I run it in. Remember to roll it underfoot when you're finished as well, just like you do with a stock whip. So there's the keeper. Okay, so on your kit, this cap will already have been put on to the lead weight. I just put mine on now. There's no use you trying that. That's kind of difficult. It's to get it to sit right, it's very difficult. So we're now going to put the strap, which isn't completely necessary, but it really is not designed to put your wrist through. It's really designed so that you can hang your whip up so that it doesn't get kinks. So we're just going to lay it on. And use the right end of the hammer, of course. And we're going to just put it right in there. Right, so that's, believe it or not, it's very strong. It's bent, these gimp pins have bent over as they go in. So now we've got the piece of leather which covers over. It's just the under wrap, and we're going to lay it over the top of the whole Turk's head. And where I started was here. That's generally where I'm going to finish.
I don't need too big a knot on this back end, so that's where I'll finish. So I'll grab another gimp pin. And then trim it off. After. There's be a little bit of surplus there, so you just trim that away. And then proceed with the rest of the pins to actually tack it into place. And of course hitting that with the hammer gently, not too hard, will lay it flatter because it actually moulds in with the leather, believe it or not. A lot of people have asked me this question, how do you get them to the shape to be so even? You can use a panel hammer when you've finished your Turk's head, like here. If you have a look, there may be some lumps or bumps. You can actually tap it into place and it really will knock it down. And we'll put one more just in here. Bring it down. Okay. Now we're going to do the Turk's head. We'll do it the same way we did this one, so that you can get the hang of actually how to tie them. Doing the same technique. I'm just going to point my piece of leather. I've just cut a point to it. Right. There we go. So we start off. I'm heading in the same direction again, going from right to left. Going all the way around, we're crossing at the front. At the back it's just one single loop. Go back round again. This time we come up over this one and under this one. Spinning it around so that you can actually see. You may need to move the strands a little bit, but try to keep them tightish if you can, because what will happen is if it's too loose, the whole thing will just start disintegrating as you're trying to tie it. Going round, forming another bite. Now that would have met the beginning, that one, and would have been basically a three, well that's actually a two bite, that one. I'm going to put a third bite into it now. So we go over the top of this one, over the next one, which is the crossed one to start with, and then under this one here, following it round. As I said, you may need to move the strands so you can see what you're doing. And then you'll come, because you're going over the top, you go over the top of this one and under this one here. That's the most important one, is this one. Right. So now we're taking another bite. And there we go. We have 4 bites. 1, 2, 3, and number 4. So you have to go over this next one and then under this one. Following it round. Now we've met the beginning again. We're back to the beginning. We could do, it's not covering enough, so we need, it's a cover knot, so we need to take another set of bites. So we need to take another 2 bites. So we're going to go parallel for the first part, because we're now extending the knot to quite difficult. And remember, we have to go over over the next one, and then under, to successfully take the next bite, which we have done. And of course, go over one and then under one. Okay, so we're going over that one, under this one. Coming back round, we see the beginning. Now we split the parallel that we started with to take the bite number 5. And it's fairly self-obvious that if you see where there is 2 overs but no under, there's got to be an under. See, there's an over, 2 overs, there should be an under here because we're going 2 unders, so we need to go under to create an over. So you've got an over, under, over. Right, we're just about back at the beginning. So there's another self-evident one here where we've got 1 over, 1 over. We need to put an under through here because we have another over, another over. So back at the beginning again. Okay, now all it is to run parallel. If you watch, you'll see the sequence. I try to open it up and do a couple at a time. Maybe I'll take 3. Pull it through. And if you keep following your strand on the top side of it all the time, you can't go wrong. Just trace it as you're going. Can be confusing when you're doing this sort of thing to start with. But after a while it becomes second nature to you. You can just about do them in your sleep. As you can see, the knot is filling up now. It's starting to cover. I'll tell you this now though, I use leather under mine and it gives a characteristic shape. Some people try to use twine or rope of some description and that will never hold. You might as well use the same leather, the scrap pieces that you've got left over. That's what I say. Do you think I'll have enough to get to the end? Well, after a few years of doing this, you can judge the length of a strand of leather and how far it will cover. 90% of the time, you'll be correct. Also, there's the odd time when you just grab a piece of leather and it's the wrong length and you've got to undo it. Start again. Right, so I pull the last one, with the first one that I put through, and feed the last one further into the centre of the knot. There's a reason for that, because then there's no join down in here and it will open up. This one here will sit better. Now, race around and tighten it up, but have a look at that. Okay, so you've tightened your knot. I just moved mine around a wee bit to cover any gaps. And of course get the old panel hammer or any hammer and just gently tap it down. This will also help to round the knot as well. Just gently tap it down. Check the shape to make sure it's reasonably symmetrical, reasonably circular. Oh, it's up to you what you want to do. And then check this tight enough. If it comes off now, start again. Oh no. No. Well done. There's the bullwhip. Next you should try kangaroo hide, or you can cut this leather into quite fine strands as well. Believe it or not, it's pretty tough. In fact, this leather is the same leather that we use for the fine falls, and even for the falls on the best kangaroo hide whips. Same leather. And I guarantee you can get it just as tough, just as strong. Prove those guys in Australia wrong that you can use other leathers. Cheers.